Welcome to Transformative Principal, where I help you stop putting out fires and start leading. I am your host, Jethro Jones. You can follow me on Twitter at Jethro Jones. This episode is brought to you by John Catt Educational, a professional development publisher serving as the global leader in combining both research and practice in all materials. Find timely PD publications to support yourself and your faculty by visiting them online at us.johncattbookshop.com. All right, welcome everybody to Transformative Principal. I'm excited to have Dr. Roy Pope on the program today. He has served as a teacher, coach, college professor, and school administrator in the United States and the United Arab Emirates for more than 2 decades. When he and his wife moved to the UAE 8 years ago, they saw a global need for an efficient, effective, multilingual professional development platform for educators. As a result, they created EdGuru, and I'm excited to have you on the program today. Roy, welcome to Transformative Principal.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Jethro.
And I've worked with a couple people in international schools, and those of us here in the States really have no idea how good we have it when we work here in the States and have so many systems and processes in place. And outside of the United States, at international schools, you're all basically your own entity, and it really changes how things need to be done. So tell us a little bit about what it's like being a principal or a school leader in an international school that is not here in the United States, since many of my listeners are here in the United States.
Okay. Well, again, thanks for having me on your podcast. Being a school leader in international school, it's for me, it's been a wonderful journey. I have about 27 years in education. I primarily worked on the elementary. Well, I worked on all levels when I was in the U.S. As an administrator, principal on the middle and high school levels. Majority of my time was on middle school. After so many years looking at traditional routes to possibly take as a superintendent or district level executive position, decided to, me and wife had some conversation, and we just kind of collectively decided to move and try something different, just to have some more exposure and different experiences, and look at educational systems. Because even when we were taking vacations, we would always visit, we would find a school to visit on our vacation in another country, whether it was the Philippines or Finland or whatever. So we moved to the United Arab Emirates, and I became the lead administrator of a grades 1 through 12 school, which was the only other thing outside of superintendent I wanted to do, because I felt that I had a firm understanding of instruction. So I wanted to see the students progress from grades 1 to grade 12. And I want to be able to put instructional systems in place from the time a child comes through the doors, and they're, like I said, the babies, till they're the taller babies, taller than me, leaving the doors, leaving out through grade 12.
Yeah, I like that. It's interesting because as we're going through our career, we develop these, proficiencies and abilities, and then it's good to continue finding challenges. And my last principal position, I was a principal of a K-12 homeschool and a K-12 school within a prison. And so having those different experiences was just like icing on the cake to be able to learn these new things that I hadn't experienced before. And it's really cool to be able to do that. So one of the things that you have talked to me about before is recognizing that professional development for educators, that there is a gap for it, and being able to be an effective online professional development platform is something that is needed out there. What led you to see the need for developing a new professional development platform?
Through my experiences as a lead administrator in the States as principal, I noticed that where the rubber meets the road, the success of the students, it depended on the level of pedagogy of the teachers. The teachers need to be equipped with those skills and have a repertoire of tools that they can pull out of the toolbox to get the curriculum across to the students. As we transitioned and moved to the United Arab Emirates, we saw that there was a need also for that to take place. So what we wanted to do is we want to take all of our knowledge, my 27 years of experience plus my wife's 26, and we want to build the ideal platform that could incorporate as many theories of learning as possible to increase the probability of the individuals that are interacting with our resources learning the material. Because again, it goes back to, if there's a sound professional development system in place for the school, then that will transfer over to the students having high student achievement. And that's what we want to do. We want to produce productive, high performing students and equip them with those skills, not only socially, but academically.
What kinds of skills should teachers and principals be looking for, especially in online professional development? What kind of features should they be looking for to make a good decision around that?
Well, one thing is they want to make sure that whatever platform they decide to interact with, that is based off of sound theory. There are a lot of different shows that they can become a part of and they can view, but I always advocate behind connecting it to research and tying into research. Prime example, when Marzano in classroom instruction that works, Marzano talks about the 21 times that it takes to form a habit. But when you actually dig a little bit deeper and look at the research, you're looking at 66 times where it takes that interaction to form for that habit to become second nature. So that ties in then to the cost of the platform. You want to make sure there's a reasonable cost, because you want your school, the individuals in your school, to interact with the resources multiple times to get to that 66, so that those habits can become internal. So that's the research. The second is the cost that we just mentioned and tied into the Marzano example. The third thing is you want to look at relevance. Are the materials that are on the platform, are they relevant and applicable to the teachers within that setting, to the school? Because, there's ample research out there that talks about the relevance of material. And if it's relevant, then you can actually internalize it and you can store it into long-term memory because you're forming an anchor. So that not only applies to teachers getting the materials across to students, but it applies to professional development for adults. It has to be relevant. So those are three of the initial starting points that I would suggest for anybody that's looking at an online professional development platform. And then look at who's behind it and make sure that the people who designed the platform, that they have been in the trenches, because they have a clear understanding of what principals and teachers go through. And then they're going to take all of their practices and then they're going to incorporate them into building the ideal platform. So you want to make sure that the person behind it has that appropriate experience.
John Catt Educational supports high-quality teaching and learning by providing publications that are research-based, practical, and focused on the key topics proven essential in today's and tomorrow's schools. The latest John Catt publications include a book whose bold, transformative ideas amaze and infuriate people around the world, according to one reviewer, a title from global leaders in curriculum planning, practice, and retrieval, one book that says stop talking and start doing with regard to teacher well-being, and much more. These books, used by educators of all roles across North America and worldwide, amplify fresh, engaging voices with practical strategies to create transformative change. Learn more in our show notes at jethrojones.com/podcast. Yeah, I think that's really important. And what I like about what you're working on is that you're intentionally being multilingual and not just doing professional development in English. So can you talk a little bit about that process as well?
Yes, the funny story is that we decided at first to do a multilingual blog because we wanted to add value, create a blog where people of different languages could come to and they could download an article or whatever and gain something from it. But then as we created that with the blog, because we're avid learners, we wanted to challenge ourselves and we wanted to see how we could create just multilingual systems for everything that we put in place. So the blog led to us then creating this platform and coming up with systems where the articles and videos could be produced in different languages. So that led us to actually studying on what does the translation look like, hiring. We had to hire experienced translators onto the team to make sure that that is translated appropriately. And then even when we're creating our articles, for example, want to make sure that we're using terminology that when it's translated, it'll still have the same meaning, whether you're going from English to Arabic to Hindi to whatever. So that journey has been very rewarding in itself, even from having online meetings with individuals. When you're looking at webinars, how can you make your webinar multilingual? How can you make, again, your blog multilingual? How can you incorporate book publishing and make that multilingual, where it can serve as or become can add value to individuals in different cultures? Because we want, again, to just create a platform. We wanted to create a platform that was just beneficial to people no matter where you live in the world. And we wanted to make sure that it was completely online.
Yeah, I like that. So speaking of online, do you think that online PD is going to be effective after the pandemic is over? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I think the pandemic has caused us all to shift in our thinking of how we're doing things within a school and a district. So I can see it being beneficial now, but then once the pandemic passes, I can see also where it's going to still be beneficial because when you're looking at schools and school districts that might have budget constraints, then an online platform could be very beneficial. Or if they're located in, let's say, rural areas and they don't have access to traditional PD providers physically coming to the building, then that's where the online platform would come into place again. And even when you look at certifications, now we're in a state, even before the pandemic, where teachers and principals were used to taking classes online and getting their endorsements added to their certifications. So the online platforms were already there, but they've stepped out more to the forefront now because of the pandemic. And I think that they'll stay around.
Yeah, and how do you think it's going to be different going forward than it has in the past?
I can see in a traditional school where a principal will be able to sit at his or her desk, and then they can select a topic from the platform, and they'll be able to send that out to teachers saying, okay, I see that for teachers on the sixth grade level they need a little help with differentiation. So then the principal will be able to assign that teacher or those groups of teachers those resources, or just kind of drop it in front of them through an email and say, hey, look, you do this. And it won't be necessarily them having to physically go around all the time or physically lead the professional development themselves in a traditional setting where they have a meeting after school. It'll be at the leisure of the teachers, which is very good because you want to make sure that you accommodate teachers as much as possible, and you want to give them, want to free them up as much as possible. You don't want to continue to add additional tasks to them. So that's one way I can see where it's going to be different.
Well, and that's an area where I agree with you. I think it's going to be different going forward, that you'll be able to do an observation, see what the teacher's doing, talk with the teacher, see what they're working on, and then be able to provide somebody who's much better than you as the principal to give an excellent professional development training to someone, which is a really easy thing to do with the technology that we have, so that it's less about you being the be all and end all, the single source of information, and more about you being a resource gatherer and curator to help give your teachers, the best things that you can find out there for them. And in one school, we started building a library of professional development, and it was really amazing to see how well that could work, and how good that was for the teachers to not have to sit through, a professional development specifically about this that they may not need, but to find the professional development that they themselves needed, and, being able to personalize that for them, so that they're not bored getting something they don't need, or they're not getting something that is, beyond where they're at. And, that same thing extends to our students as well. When we can personalize for them, then they can get what they need when they need it.
Yeah, exactly. And in my opinion, an ideal school is a school where not only students have choices within the classroom, but then teachers have choices as relates to their selection of professional development activities. So I commend you on that. I think the Library of Professional Development is a really good idea. And going back to another requirement for the platform, it should be able to have the capability for teachers to be able to go in and they can cherry pick and pick what they feel they need. So it doesn't have to be necessarily mandated.
I think that's really important too, because a teacher knows where they're struggling more than the principal does. And if we can trust them to find the areas where they're struggling and find resources to help them be better, I think we can be in a good place for those kinds of things to happen. In closing, Roy, what is one thing that a principal can do this week to be a transformative principal like you?
What I would encourage principals to do, pull your teachers together and listen to them, listen to their ideas. The success of a building isn't about one person. It's about pooling all of those ideas together. And if the principal pulls those key stakeholders within the building together, and he can use them either as a sounding board, or use it as a session where, again, he can listen to their ideas on how to make it better. If any principal does that, I guarantee you 100%, your school will go a lot higher than depending just solely on yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Roy, how do people connect with you and connect with EdGuru?
I want to encourage everyone to please visit our website at www.edguru.co. You can Google EdGuru, and it'll be the website at the top, ranked by SEO by Google. Or you can email us at info@edguru.co.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for being part of Transformative Principal, and links to that can be found in the show notes at jethrojones.com/podcast. And thanks again, Dr. Roy, for being part of Transformative Principal.
Hey, thank you so much for inviting me and having me on your show, Jethro.
Thank you to our valued partner, John Catt Educational. If you are a leader looking to make transformative change by providing yourself and your leaders and teachers with professional development that is research-based and rigorous, yet easy to digest and full of practical strategies, check out the latest publications from John Catt. Visit us.johncattbookshop.com to find information on bulk orders or learn much more in our show notes. You can also use the code TRANSFORMATIVE to save a bundle at us.johncattbookshop.com.